Hi everyone, welcome to Cloud Computing series. Today let's start with the virtual machines. The first one is a physical machine. Yes, as we can see in the diagram, this is a traditional computer set up without any virtualization. Yes, and the layers are hardware layer, the physical components like a CPU, memory and storage, then operating system. The operating system runs directly on the hardware. Yes, then the application layer, the software or apps runs on the operating system. Then how it works? See, there is a no virtualization. The operating system has a direct access to the hardware and the application runs on the operating system. For example, a regular laptop running Windows with the Microsoft Word as an application. See, in the figure, the host machine is equipped with a physical hardware as shown at the bottom of the figure. As we have seen in the diagram, the real computer has actual physical components like a processor, memory and storage. Yes. Common example is a Windows computer with an x86 processors like a Intel or a AMD. Next is the virtual machine can be provisioned for any hardware system. That is, a virtual machine can be created to act like any type of computer. The second one is a native virtual machine. So this is a virtual machine setup where the virtual machine monitor runs directly on the hardware. The layers are hardware layer, that is a physical machine, then virtual machine monitor layer, that is a hypervisor. It is a software layer that creates and manages virtual machines. Then guest operating system. Each virtual machine has its own operating system, runs on the virtual machine monitor. Then guest apps. Applications run on the guest operating system. Then how it works is, see, the virtual machine monitor, also called a hypervisor, it sits directly on the hardware and creates multiple virtual machines. Each virtual machine acts like a separate computer with its own operating system and apps. For example, a server running a Xen hypervisor with a multiple virtual machines, each running a different operating systems like Ubuntu and Windows. Here, the key point is the virtual machine monitor has a direct access to the hardware, making it efficient. Yes. See, as we have discussed in the diagram, this diagram shows a native virtual machine installed with the use of a virtual machine monitor called a hypervisor within a privileged mode. See, a privileged mode is a special mode in a computer where the operating system or a hypervisor has full control over the hardware. So for example, a hardware has a x86 architecture running the Windows system. The guest operating system could be a Linux system and the hypervisor is the Xen system developed at Cambridge University. That means the virtual machine inside this computer could run a Linux and it is managed by a hypervisor called Xen. This next point is, see, this is called a bare metal virtualization because the hypervisor runs directly on the real machine without needing another operating system. Just moving to the next, that is hosted virtual machine. So this is a virtual machine setup where the virtual machine monitor runs on the top of the host operating system. Yes. Then the layers are hardware, that is a physical machine, then host operating system. A regular OS runs directly on the hardware. Then virtual machine monitor, that is a hypervisor, runs an application on the host operating system. Then virtual machine monitor, that is the hypervisor, runs as an application on the host operating system. The next layer is guest apps. Applications run on the guest operating system. Then how it works? See, the host operating system runs on the hardware and the virtual machine monitor is installed as a software on the host operating system. Then virtual machine monitor then creates a virtual machines, each with its own guest operating system and apps. See how it works means, see, the host operating system runs on the hardware and the virtual machine monitor is installed as a software on the host operating system. Virtual machine monitor then creates a virtual machines with its own guest operating system and apps. So for example, a Windows laptop running a virtual box with a Linux virtual machine inside it. So here the key point is the virtual machine monitor does not direct access the hardware. It goes through the host operating system, which can make it less efficient than a native virtual machine. Here the virtual machine monitor runs in the non-privileged mode. Non-privileged mode is like a guest mode. The programs can only use the system resources with the permission from the operating system. Moving to the next is dual mode virtual machine. See, this is a hybrid setup where the virtual machine monitor can run in two modes, that is privileged mode and non-privileged mode. Privileged mode is direct access to the hardware and non-privileged mode is user mode. Then the layers are hardware, that is a physical machine, then host operating system, the main operating system that runs on the hardware, then virtual machine monitor. The hypervisor runs in two modes, that is a privileged mode, direct access to the hardware, and non-privileged mode, that is runs as an application on the host operating system. Then guest operating system, that is each virtual machine has its own OS. Then guest apps, applications run on the guest OS. So how it works is the virtual machine monitor can switch between two modes. Yes, in a privileged mode, it directly controls the hardware for a better performance, and in a non-privileged mode, it runs on the host operating system, allowing the host OS to manage some tasks. For example, a system using a hypervisor like a Zine with the extensions for both direct hardware access and user mode operation. So here the key point is this setup allows a flexibility, that is some part of the virtual machine monitor runs directly on the hardware and while other runs on the host operating system. See, in this case the existing operating system does not need to be changed. Then the part of the virtual machine monitor runs at the user level and other part runs at the supervisor level, as we have discussed in the diagram. That means some parts of the virtual machine monitor act like a normal application while other act like a operating system. See, in this case the host OS may have to be modified to some extent. That means sometimes the existing OS needs a few changes for virtualization to work properly. Next is multiple virtual machines can be ported to a given hardware system to support the virtualization process. That is, many virtual machines can run on one real computer at the same time. The next is the virtual machine approach offers a hardware independence of the OS and application. That is, virtualization allows a software to run on different types of computers without issues. An application and its OS can be packed together as a virtual machine and run anywhere. This next point is virtual machine could run on an OS different from that of the host. That means the virtual machine can run a different operating system than the real computer. For example, Linux virtual machine on a Windows host. So thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, share and subscribe for more insights on cloud computing, and also check out our playlist for more in-depth topics. See you in the next video.